How would you like to learn how to build a 7-figure Airbnb business from a guy who's built 3 8-figure businesses, including a 7-figure one in STRs? Well, that's what you're going to learn today with Bill Faeth here on the Fearless Investor Podcast. Hey, I need to take a really quick break from this podcast. And if you are a loyal listener of the Fearless Investor Podcast, you're probably either a business owner or looking to start a business. And for that reason, you need to make sure you're doing things correctly, down to the T. From forming the correct LLC to bookkeeping to understanding the tax code and more. It's all really the boring stuff, but it can make or break your business. In fact, if you aren't doing it correctly, you could be like 98% of other business professionals in the US and overpay on taxes. Don't do that, guys. Be the 2%. And that's why I rely on Easier Accounting, and so should you. Easier Accounting is a team of tax professionals that will set up your LLC, keep your books, file your taxes, and they can even repair your credit. And just so you know, I myself use Easier Accounting, and this came after using a similar company that, really being blunt here, completely ripped me off. So when I started using Easier Accounting, I came in a little bit skeptical, but as I started talking to them, I could really tell they had my best interests at heart. And you know me, if I'm not a professional, I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to outsource that stuff. And I hope you will do the same and use that same mindset to hire professionals to help you form and manage your business. Easier Accounting is absolutely the way to go. Go check them out at fearlesskyle.com/easier accounting. Hey, what's going on, Team Fearless? Kyle Stanley here. Really excited to have you back on the Fearless Investor Podcast. And we're getting away a little bit more from like Airbnb and short-term rental strategy today, and a little bit more into just how do you build a legit business and how do you build one based off of just really great marketing as well. Bill Faeth is one of the best in the business when it comes to marketing. He's built over $30 million businesses in his time, a lot in the golf realm of things, but also one in short-term rentals at 7 figures, where he owns some properties and also co-hosts for some people as well. Now, Bill does a really unique strategy, uses a really unique strategy when it comes to marketing and targeting audiences. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what I really want you to get out of today is just how Bill really is just willing to do the things that most successful people are not willing to do. And that is the difference between success and living paycheck to paycheck or living that average lifestyle. So we're going to have a lot of conversations like that today with Bill Faeth here on the Fearless Investor Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey guys, welcome into the Fearless Investor Podcast, and we've got a long overdue guest. Been meaning to get Bill Faeth on this show for a long time. He and Mike Sjogren have hosted, still to this day, the largest STR for hosts and for the Serious Business Builders event in the space with the WealthCon. I wasn't able to be here this last year because we had our daughter, but the year before was just on fire, and I would have expected probably would be the same the second year, but Bill, brother, excited to have you on, excited to even go beyond STRs as we talk about how you've been able to build some really successful businesses and dive deep into that. So thanks for jumping on, man.
I'm really excited to be here. Those of you that don't know my background, I'm really neighbors. I grew up right down the road from Kyle in Bakersfield. So we're going to talk about grapes and, all this different type of Central Valley stuff today, right?
And I don't care what anyone says, Fresno and Bakersfield. I mean, there's no way you can compare Fresno to Bakersfield. I've been to Bakersfield, and I feel like I'm going to get shot at every single corner there. Fresno, we at least have like that part of the town where it's like, okay, it's not farms, it's not ghetto. Like, this is actually nice. So I just haven't seen that in Bakersfield, brother.
I can tell you where it is. It's a small little 5-block, area on the west side of town. There's a reason that I drove through Tehachapi and moved to Nashville, Tennessee 21 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Awesome. Well, we're live here in the 6-figure formula group too. If you are listening on recording, you're missing out on the live experience. Caroline just posted saying she's actually in Ripon, not too far away, or Ripon. I've never known how to say that. Ripon.
I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, I've never been, but I've heard good things about their STR business there too, because it's kind of like a small area with not a whole lot of competition. So
I'll tell you what, I've got some friends that are crushing it on the Kern River on the north side of Bakersfield. There's about 7 to 10 STRs I'm aware of that are absolutely still even right now annihilating it there. I can't believe
nice.
it. But
yeah, there's pockets. There's pockets everywhere. Caroline says it's between Modesto and Manteca. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's jump into it, man. And as always, what's the craziest STR story that you have for our audience today? Team Fearless wants to hear all about it.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have that many crazy stories. It kind of, I don't know. I never had a raging party or,
That's good.
major destruction or anything like that. But I will tell you, when I purchased my second STR, which I think is the hardest one when you're building out a portfolio, is number two. I ended up losing 126 grand, which almost just crippled me and almost cut me off at my knees, because I have this innate problem, Kyle, and it's trying to help people, and it gets me in a lot of fucking trouble about 4 or 5 times through the course of my life. And I tried to help this contractor that really turned out to be a handyman. I didn't do my due diligence. He wasn't licensed. I just didn't know what I was doing when I got into this. And my second property literally almost, cut me off at the knees. And that's kind of the story.
Well, I got to imagine too, though, that trying to help people has done more good for you than has done bad.
You're a helper. I'm a helper. I mean, I believe in the motto, give more than you expect to receive. I believe in reciprocity. There's no question that I have benefited tremendously, and I'm not talking about financially, but really just from seeing people grow and achieve their life dreams. I was a college golf coach at Cal State Bakersfield, and it started that way, and it's manifested through my whole educational career. I wouldn't change a thing for the world, but there were some check boxes I didn't check that are now in my process that I learned on that $126,000 mistake in number two. That would be kind of my craziest story.
Okay. Well, hey, stuff happens, but just look at the title of the podcast today, how Bill Faeth built 3 $30 million businesses. I'm sure you've recovered from that, learned a few things. And you even mentioned there, that you were a golf coach. And that's kind of where I want to now go back to is, before we go into what are all these businesses aside from just STRs and how you've been able to build success, especially in short-term rentals, what was life like for Bill back in the day before you were building businesses?
I actually started building my first business with the help of my mother. Nice. I was selling T-shirts in her 1984 Ford Tempo at Bakersfield High School, West Bakersfield High School, at high school football games. I had played in what's called a junior am, like a pro-am in golf, but I was a junior and we had amateurs playing with us. Met a guy named Jay Jacoby down in Los Angeles, and he gave me like 20 shirts. He was a T-shirt manufacturing business, and back in the day, I don't know if anybody's old enough, but if you remember kind of the Zubaz pants and the late 80s, the early 90s, the workout pants, the crazy shirts, they almost looked like they were, almost like airbrush. And so it was Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley and all these guys. And he gave them to me and my mom because he knew we didn't have much money. Wasn't dirt poor, but my mom was a teacher, probably never made more than 35 grand a year in her life. And my mom taught me how to sell. My mom taught me about not really P&Ls, but about expense and how you need to mark up the T-shirt to make profit. Because I would have to pay Jay, $5 a shirt, and I started selling them at like $7.50. And eventually, after the second or third go around, they were $25, for these shirts. So my mom really taught me. She was a teacher, then she was a vice principal, then she was like a superintendent of schools. Then she bought my sophomore year in high school a preschool in Bakersfield, California. And I was with her. I had no father growing up, so she was my mom and my dad. And she kind of taught me how to run a business when I was 16, 17 years old. And it turned out to be somewhat successful. I mean, me and two friends sold over $100,000 in T-shirts in one high school football season.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. So your mom being a teacher, my mom was a teacher in Fresno, and she never had any business experience. So did your mom have business experience, or like where did that intuition come from for her?
I think it probably came from my grandfather, her father. He was one of the founding 8 members of Super 8 Motels out of Aberdeen, South Dakota. But my whole family was in education. There was no entrepreneurship outside of, and that was kind of like a silent investment. But my grandfather was super wicked smart. He played professional sports. He was a teacher and a principal. Same thing, same track. My grandmother was the 1984 National Teacher of the Year in the country as a kindergarten teacher. So I think, I don't know where that entrepreneurial drive came from my mother, but I sure am freaking glad that she did it, because I think that's really what I kind of harken back to for an older term, to where that's where I kind of got started on my entrepreneurial journey.
Got it. And so I didn't hear a mention of dad. Was she a single mom, or did you?
My parents got divorced when roughly when I was 4 or 5 in Paso Robles. My mom moved to Bakersfield, became a teacher. I would get the prototypical, father card, birthday card once a year that was signed your father, Ed. Had zero relationship. And in 1991 is when I graduated from high school. I was down in Southern California, and I was paired in the California State High School Championships, actually with a good friend from Visalia, Joe Acosta, and another good friend named Eldrick Woods. Eldrick was already a big deal. People know him as Tiger. He showed up. I literally came up and on the range 10 minutes before I started to play, and that was the last time I ever saw him. I said, you know what, you can't be here when I'm doing this. You didn't earn the right. I don't ever want to see you again. And so that was the first and last time I really have any recollection of my father. So my mom and my grandparents, really my grandfather was my father figure, but one of the things I look back as an adult, I was always seeking out father figures, and I was very fortunate to have good friends. Mike Knight, his dad Gary, he was my dad growing up. I mean, he took me to basketball practice. He taught Mike how to fish. He taught me how to fish, but I didn't learn, Kyle, how to change. I don't know how to change oil in a car. I don't know how to change a tire. I can't install this ceiling fan. I didn't have a dad to ever teach me that stuff. So thank God I married my wife who does all that shit with our short-term rentals. She had a dad that taught her that stuff. But I think the one thing, like my mom, if you remember back in the day, there was Mervyn's and Payless and all these old school stores. So my mom was a teacher, and then she worked, multiple jobs at Mervyn's, and she'd work there during holidays. The biggest thing I think my mom ever did for me, outside, forget about the t-shirt business, in third grade, I became and I don't even know if this term is around today, a latchkey kid. I had to take care of myself. I had to get myself. She would leave at 6:30 in the morning to drive 30 minutes out to Shafter, California to go teach. She didn't even teach in Bakersfield. She just didn't want to raise me in a small town in Shafter like that. So she's gone. I had to cook for myself in the morning. I had to get myself dressed. I had to get to the bus, get to school. I'd go to basketball, soccer practice afterwards at school. Then I'd have to ride my bike home and take care of my snacks because she'd go straight to Mervyn's to work, and I wouldn't see her till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I kind of felt lonely as a kid, but man, did that shape my life in a positive way of how she nurtured me, but also how she educated me through those challenging and difficult experiences.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I feel like there's so much there that in so many ways that I can take that, but I guess to bring it back to really when you actually started this first business with her help and you saw this success, right? What was, first of all, let's just talk about that. You were a teenager. Were you even a teenager yet?
Yeah, I was 16 when we started.
16. Okay. So you're 16 years old. You've grossed over $100,000 in one season with your mom's help and pairing it up with a buddy of yours. Did you kind of look at each other and say well, what the heck? What else can we do? Or did you decide
not at all?
What was that next step?
I had just quit playing basketball and soccer. I played varsity basketball. I was playing travel, club soccer, not AYSO stuff. And I quit to go all in golf at the beginning of my sophomore year because I was starting to get relatively good. And at that time, I was just, we couldn't afford for me to play what's called the AJGA, the American Junior Golf. So it's like the PGA Tour. So I was just playing around Central, going to Fresno, going to LA, play Southern California Junior Golf. And she said, look, you just made more money than I will make in the next 2 years. So we have to pay taxes on this. So whatever it was, I don't know, 10, 20%. There was nothing back then. She's all, we're going to put this in a savings account. She didn't know anything about stock market or, any of that type of stuff. And we're going to use this so you can travel the next year. So what happened is at the very end of that season, we took some of the money and she said, I want you to apply to some of these AJGA tournaments. And I did, because you had to apply to get in. And now they have this whole qualifying system. And based on my record, I got accepted to come to Kentucky, like the very lowest end tournament at the end of the year.
Okay.
And I was fortunate enough to win.
Nice.
I won my first national championship. So basically, now I'm out of my sophomore year, summer between sophomore and junior year. We probably spent $20,000 me going and playing as many big tournaments as I can. The Junior Worlds, the U.S. Junior Championships, traveling all over the country, because that's how you got recruited, back then. And you had to play in that stuff. Nobody comes to look at local, high school tournaments, even at the state level. So we used that money for that. And then I was good, but I wasn't great. I'd won a national championship. That doesn't guarantee a scholarship. The following year, my junior year, I finished third in the world. I won 4 national championships. I was ranked third in in the United States coming out for all junior golfers. I was getting offers from every single university. And then that's when, I don't really know what happened to that money. But for all I know, my mom needed to use it for us. I don't know. But that's when we kind of just got in and knew what was going to happen. I look back today, I probably would have put that for my kids in a 529 or investment account or something like that. But she just didn't know about that stuff. She taught. We went to McDonald's to eat, or she would cook Spam and eggs for dinner and breakfast and that type of stuff. And we were okay. We weren't poor. I didn't miss a meal. I mean, I'm still, showing some pounds there. But you know what? She put me first. Everything was about me. And the one thing that I learned, the preschool she bought was called Happy Land. And I'll never forget the first lesson. She said it, and she talked about marketing. She was doing newspaper ads, and she even spent money on like radio commercials, which she didn't have. And she said, the one thing that I've learned, I don't really know how to run a business, and I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember that long ago, but that's when I learned marketing. And at least I learned the principle of how important it was. And, whether it's a $30 million business or a coffee shop around the corner or an STR, I believe that the best marketing wins. I shouldn't even say I believe. I can prove it against anything. It's not always the best property, the best business, or the best product. The best marketing will win. People like Steve Jobs will tell you the exact same thing. Apple did not have the best product, when Jobs was alive. I think the BlackBerry was probably superior in the early days. The Trio might have been superior. There was a lot of problems they had with their first computers after the Apple IIe, and a lot of iterations that didn't make it. But you know what he did? He branded and he marketed.
Yeah.
And you can see those use cases across a lot of major companies as well as small companies.
I totally agree. I talk a lot about how I started a business back in 2012, and it lasted for about 6 years. And 4 of those years were probably 4 years too long that it lasted because the writing was on the wall. But one of the things I look back in that business about is I knew nothing about marketing. Then I got into an MLM. I learned a lot about marketing. And I'm like, man, if I could have applied so many of the things about both internet marketing and just the things I learned within that MLM to that business back in the day. Now, though, I apply it to everything. So what are some things that you learned about marketing early on that have helped you in all of the businesses that you've been in?
I would say that one of the big things for me was just brute force and that you have to do it. So I didn't know how to do it. My first big business that I did, I was still playing professional golf in 93, 2 years. So let me just give you a really quick timeline. I graduated in 91, full ride UCLA. I was there for not even a full year. I didn't finish. I won 3 tournaments out of 5 tournaments. My freshman year, I thought I was the shit. I dropped out. I turned professional. My grandfather, my mother said, "You're on your own if you're giving up a full ride. We're all educators." They wanted me to get my education.
Sure.
I didn't have any money. So I had a good friend, Buck Owens, who was a country music legend, gave me 25 grand to get started. And I kind of parlayed that into making some significant money, significant meaning over $100,000 back in those days. And I was able to go to South America, and I stayed with this family 20 minutes outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil, in my second year down there in 1994. And we'd stay in housing so we could stay for free, right? And I'll never forget Chad Kermill from Houston, myself, we're staying with a family of 11, and we both have like these cots that we're staying on, no air conditioning, and literally like there's an adobe like hut behind their house, which is only 2 or 3 bedrooms, and I mean like 2 or 3 rooms, like a kitchen and the family room and then a sleeping room. And they're hand making Brazilian like sarongs and swimsuits and all this swimwear. Long story short, between that year and the next year, I spent all the money that I made playing golf in Asia and South America, $198,000. I'll never forget the number, to build an e-commerce website. Wow. The same thing you and I can do today, literally for about $1,500 and 4 or 5 hours on Shopify. Right. And so I started drop shipping stuff from them. The next year, I went back 6 months later, showed them the website, had all the sizes, and I built Bell Aqua bikinis. That was my first acquisition. After about 26 months, I got acquired by Venus Swimwear.
And this was back in what year?
1994, 95.
So an e-commerce store when most people didn't even know what the internet was.
Netscape, AOL chat rooms. That's how we were doing everything back then. It was just brute force. I had 6 friends I started by myself, and then when I was out playing, I had 6 friends that were literally pounding chat rooms was the majority of everything we were doing, and we were trying to do some stuff on Netscape, which was very challenging back then.
So I totally understand the brute force, and I get that, but maybe something that's like tangible and you can feel it for our audience right now. What's one thing that you learned, even as we've gotten into a newer age where you don't have to worry about chat rooms and everything? What's one thing that you do in all of your businesses today from a marketing standpoint that you're like, I would do this in short-term rentals, I would do this in any of my businesses? What's one thing that our audience could learn from?
Direct response marketing to your buyer persona. Too many people are spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on websites and trying to SEO them to, you're not going to SEO out, you're not going to out SEO Airbnb, Verbo, Vacasa, Evolve. You just can't do it. The brand isn't big enough. Right. So you can do a little bit of search engine optimization when you're building out a sales page, you're building out a website, but it's direct response marketing. That's LinkedIn ads, Facebook. Like if you're going after travel nurses, business travelers, that type of stuff, you should be living in LinkedIn. That's where your buyer persona is, right? And like nobody talks about travel managers. If you're in urban areas, they're the ones that control the large travel budgets for these Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies, and they're booking for hundreds, sometimes thousands. So I built my limousine, my ground transportation business, literally direct response marketing going after travel managers, right? So then the other part is if you're at vacation rentals, if you're non-urban areas, that type of stuff, identify the top markets that your people are coming from, target those markets with direct response ads. You can use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I use Facebook for everything. I probably deployed $15 to $17 million of Facebook ads in my career. And I started with Google ads. I also believe we need to do a little bit of Google ads. Very easy to set up, at least protect your brand name. So like one of the things that I do for my own properties, and I teach for free, like we do reels and all that, podcasts, all that shit, is make sure you have a picture of your brand, in your listing. Make sure you write underneath it, hey, welcome to Dragonfly in Gulf Shores, Alabama, because some people don't know the difference between Fresno, Tulare, Visalia, or Bakersfield, or, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or Fort Morgan, or Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, or Sevierville, right? And then make sure if you don't have any SEO, like if you go and you type in, Dragonfly, Gulf Shores, and you don't see your result as number 1 or 2 below the paid ads, then literally just go spend $2 a day in Google Ads to protect your brand, right? So that way, those people that are smart and savvy that know they don't want to pay Airbnb, Verbo, TripAdvisor fees, they can literally search for your brand and then go back. So there's many ways we can use direct response marketing. And I'm going to give you my biggest tip. This is the biggest thing that I will give to most people they don't do. Understand how shitty your hosting is in the markets that you're invested into, right? So like when I go to Banner Elk, North Carolina, that's because I don't want to compete in Gatlinburg. When I go to Gulf Shores, I don't want to compete in 30A, right? I'm going where prices are lower, entry costs me less, returns are very similar, and the hosting is not as comparable, right? So one of the things I do is I drop pins in my areas for Facebook ads, and then I am sending ads to people that are there having a shitty experience. And I give them my value proposition about, hey, here's the 3 things I'm going to do for you if you let me have the opportunity to earn your business next year when you come back. And it's basically their pain points, pain point and solution, right? So that's the biggest thing. I can't even tell you how many leads I acquire from people that have had shitty experiences. And because it's an emotional, marketing is all about emotion and selling the outcome, not the utility. So they're upset because they ran out of toilet paper. They're upset because the house wasn't clean. That's when I want to catch them and get them into my funnel.
So you're talking right now about the guest, and I actually just did a video recently on Instagram, this same situation, but with co-hosting clients, right?
100%.
All of these, like one of our areas is Bass Lake, California. Well, all these houses in Bass Lake, California have been run by Bass Lake Rentals or these, like 40-year-old companies that just barely got a website and don't know how to use Airbnb and VRBO, and they're just working off of referrals only. And I'm like, that's not good management. I'm going to go to all these owners who are not having good experiences with their management, and I'll be the solution for them. But you're talking about the guest side. Either way is marketing. So when you talk about, I guess going back to the $1 or $2 for Facebook ads, I feel like most people I talk to just don't even know where to start
Mm-hmm.
with Facebook ads, right? Like they don't understand what audience should I choose, or like how do I even set up, a Facebook ads account? Like what are just I don't need the strategy. I just want people to hear right now all the fears that are going on in their head of like I don't understand Facebook ads, and hear just maybe a couple things from you to simplify it so that it gets them past that fear and say like, okay, I'm going to go try out Facebook ads now.
Yep. I'm going to give you I'm going to start with the intermediate version. You don't even need to have an ads account. But if you don't know how to like go to Canva and turn 5 or 6 images into a video, if you do, go to Canva and turn your top, whatever your top 5 images are on your Airbnb listing, go put those into Canva and put those into a video. If you don't know how to do that, go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, and pay a guy $10, $20. Say, hey man, can you put these 5 images and turn it into a cool video for you? Here's my listing. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. It's that simple. Within a day, you've got a video that comes back. Post it to your Facebook page. Post it to your property's Facebook page. And then go in and boost it, right? And boost it, but make sure you set the geographic area that you want to target. So like Bass Lake, Kyle's not targeting people where I live in Nashville. I have been to Bass Lake a few times when I grew up in Bakersfield. He's targeting probably Central California, like Bakersfield is a target. Visalia is a target. Paso Robles might even be a target because it's different than Lake Nacimiento. People go there for different reasons. Probably up to Madera, Modesto, Porterville, all those different areas. But he's not going to San Francisco. He's not going to LA. So get the targeting down. It's really simple. You can just put a pin right on your property and then say, I want to go 50 miles, 100 miles, just to keep this easy. And then just put 5, 10, or $20 behind it and boost it. That's it. Facebook's algorithm is so good today. It's smarter than Google's algorithm when they're trying to target people. Let Facebook do all the work. We don't have to get into all this mumbo jumbo of targeting and all that type of stuff. Just understand what you're trying to do is get brand impressions with that type. You're not trying to drive conversion. Nobody's going to see your ad for the very first time. Well, maybe somebody, you might get lucky. It's like fishing. You might drop the wrong bait at the wrong depth right on top of a fish's mouth and they're going to grab it. But it's really about branding that gives you other opportunities. So you don't have to go through all the big stuff. That's how you get started. And really the easiest way is just go in and put up a post, and you can take your top 5 images, put up a post, write some really nice copy, and then just boost and put $10 behind it and do it within 50 miles of your property. If people are coming from within 50 miles, which you could do in Bass Lake, right? You can't do that at Destin or those types of places because they're coming from everywhere. So that's probably the easiest way to get started with direct response ads. You can get way more in depth with retargeting and all that type of stuff. The second place, Kyle, I would say is, and this gets a little bit more technical, but everybody should be retargeting. If you spent the money for a direct booking website or a sales page or Market My STR or any of that different type of stuff, you should be retargeting people that are visiting your website. Right? So I'm sure if you go and click on Kyle's website at fearlesskyle.com and he's selling a product, you guys are in a paid program. You didn't come in and buy whatever program this is the first time that you saw Kyle on Instagram. No. You had to watch 4 or 5 of his reels. You subscribed to his email list. You consumed content from him. So that way Kyle had to earn your trust because Kyle's competing with me and Mike and TJ and everybody else that's out there. Right? So he's probably retargeting you either with email, text message, Facebook ads, whatever that is. So retargeting your direct booking site is something that's absolutely critical. We can't do that with Airbnb and Vrbo. We don't own those assets, so we can't get a pixel in there. But I think that the retargeting component is critical. Too many people get into this, Kyle, and they think, oh, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms have them. And really, if you don't retarget, you're wasting your money. So there's a metric that I use. If you're going to spend $1 on any type of direct response ad, you've got to spend 25 to 30 cents on the retargeting. If you're not willing to learn how to do that or make that investment, then don't do it.
I love it. So the simple part that I really heard, right? Because everyone here has a Facebook. We're doing this live in a Facebook group. So everyone should also have a professional Facebook page for their properties or a property. And just by posting it there and then clicking boost and throwing a few bucks at it and picking your pin location of where you want that to be targeted, that's something anyone can do. That's really simple. Correct. What you just got into with retargeting, goes down a different route. And one of the things I want to ask you about, because this was something that I did not learn the name of until just a few years back, and it's changed the way that I market: a lead magnet. You talk a
Mm-hmm.
lot about lead magnets. Can you just share a little bit more about what it is and how you're using it in your STR business, especially?
A lead magnet is just an exchange of information that I kind of learned that from HubSpot in 2007. And you take information that would be valuable for your guests and you go into Canva or you go into a Google Doc and you create a document. And then you save it as a PDF. And I would write the document in like Google Docs or Word. Then I would go and just grab a template inside of Canva and use their graphics that are already there, make it look pretty, and then put it in a PDF. And this could be the top 5 fishing holes at Bass Lake that only locals know about, right? It could be the worst restaurants or the best sushi places, the best hiking trails in the Sierra Nevadas, whatever it is. There's a website called Where the Locals Eat, right? And it's so different than going to TripAdvisor or any of these big mega sites. It's like the real stuff of where, if I go visit Kyle in Fresno, I'm gonna say, dude, where are we getting the best like carne asada tacos that we're gonna be afraid to drive up to the taco truck, because that's usually where you get the best stuff, right? I don't want the most popular steakhouse. They usually suck. So think about the information. I always want you to think about where the locals eat. And if you think about that, you're the local. This is why I believe that those of you that are not going and seeing your own properties before you buy them, before you contract them as a co-host, whatever, that you don't end up with an intimate relationship with the property and the surroundings, you can't serve your guest. And you sure as hell can't market as well as I can, because I'm going to become an expert in whether I own the property or co-host it. I know everything about that property and everything that my guests are going to want to do around that property, and I'm going to exploit it, and I'm going to put it into a lead magnet. So top 5 sushi restaurants, best trails, all the stuff that I've talked about, each one of those can go into Canva, you create a PDF, and then send it out via email. Put it behind a Facebook ad, share it on social media. Most importantly, the social media platform that nobody talks about, take that beautiful front page graphic. The Canva's already designed for you. I draw stick figures, so don't think I don't know how to use Photoshop and that type of stuff. Canva's Photoshop for dummies like me. So I write my content, drop it into Canva, save it as a PDF, and then I go to this little platform, which used to be the fastest growing social media platform ever, called Pinterest, and I start pinning it. So if I'm going to do something about trails, like I'm doing all over for my newest Montana property right now, I'm in all the outdoor stuff, all the RV, people that are living in RVs, people that are hikers, all that type of stuff, even for ATVs and snowmobiling and all that type of stuff. I'm taking these things and I'm using those trails in all these different formats to generate leads.
Yeah.
Because I've got like 17 trail heads within 2 miles of my property, right? So I'm looking at whatever people are going to do. If you're in the Smokies, I mean, think about the stuff. Most people don't know what Dollywood does during Christmas or, even Halloween, unless they're hardcore Dollywood fans, right? So share that stuff with them. Not the butterfly, in the Smokies, there's this whole lightning bug thing, and it only lasts like 5 or 10 days or something through the year, and trying to get tickets is like trying to get Taylor Swift tickets, right? So share that stuff, make it public, distribute it any way you can on all the channels. But there's one thing that happens. There's this exchange. When Kyle wants my lightning bug PDF, he's got to give me something very valuable, and that's his email address.
Yes.
And Kyle knows he's going to get marketed to right behind that. So the number one thing is don't sell to Kyle once he gets that. Don't just say, hey, come book my Airbnb right off the bat. Create more value. That's why we've got to create a funnel of information, because I still, just like you guys had to learn who Kyle was, how he's going to benefit you, he had to earn your trust before you would buy from him. It's the same thing with our guests.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think that I really want people to grasp right now. Whether you love getting those emails from Bill and I after you download our free thing or not, it's building a relationship with that person. So take that same, like, I would recommend anyone here listening, go and download something from Bill's site or one of Bill's lead magnets. Doesn't even have to be from STR. It's just Bill, what's your website?
Buildstrwealth.com, and even non-STR is billfaeth.com.
Yeah, there you go. So go to either of those sites. Bill's going to have lead magnets on there, and just look at how he communicates with you through that process after you download that lead magnet. Take that same idea and shoot, you might get so excited that you're going to go buy Bill's stuff because he's a great marketer, but also take that same idea and now apply it to your STRs. And what can I do? What free information can I give away where it's so enticing to potential guests or potential co-hosting leads that they'll want to get that for free and be okay with me sending them emails because I provided so much value on the front end that when they get an email from me, they're still going to be excited because I keep on giving more and more and more value to eventually it's just like, if I'm getting all this for free, what am I going to get when I actually give this guy some money? Right. And that's the idea behind a lead magnet. And I love that idea of like, hey, pinpointing what's the best places for fly fishing, what's the best places to eat. One of the things, Bill, though, that you can do is even when they do become a client of yours, there's still other lead magnets that you can create, especially if they went through Airbnb and we want to transition them over to a direct booking. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. If I could give one little plug here, and it's free content, but if you go to the Build STR Wealth YouTube channel, and there 3 weeks ago, I do a Superhost Sunday thing every Sunday. It's called the guest transition, right? And that's kind of what Kyle's talking about. How do I bring the guest from having a good experience, a great experience at my property, and get them to come back? Well, that starts all at the very first part of communication. So it's like this whole 17-step process. And I don't want that to scare you because it's your standard messaging that you would give to a guest for check-in and all that stuff is included. But there's one thing, if you weren't at my STR Wealth conference this year, it's my welcome message. Hey, Kyle, my name's Bill. I'm going to be your host at Dragonfly down in Gulf Shores. I really appreciate you booking our family beach house. I know you're not going to be here for about 5 or 6 months, but if you need anything between now and then, now you have my personal cell phone number. Just wanted to say hi and put a name with a face. Nobody fucking does that because it takes too long. It's too hard. It's not. I got the phone number in Airbnb. I literally do that. I personalize it to Kyle. I text it to him. I have never had one person reply and say that's creepy. So that's the initiation because nobody does that. So that's kind of, Kyle, I'm going to answer your question. How have I built 3 $30 million businesses? I do the stuff that nobody else does. And I do it better, right? So that's something, I can't even tell you how many messages I got. People are blown away. I did that on stage at the conference. It's simple. It's easy. But literally there was 1,000 people in that room. I guarantee you less than 10 or 15 people are probably doing that today.
Yep.
And that is a huge deal. So then you go into guest transition, just the personalization. There was something I said in that video that I just did for you that's really critical. And this is how I sign off on every single message to my guests. And I have this transition. It's every beach house, every cabin, every property, whether it's I own it or I co-host it, it's personal. I don't use my brand ever. And it's the family beach house. It's the family cabin. And it's Bill Faeth. Then it's Bill and Bria, my wife. Part of the strategy for us on our direct booking pages in my profile, it's a picture of me and my wife together. Yep. Why? Because that resonates with couples. Right now I have a resonation with female and male. Second part of this is when I transition to go from Bill to Bill and Bria, and the last 2 messages or emails that I send are from the Faeth family. And in there, and I think it's maybe the day after check-in or something, I reference my daughter's names, which are Oakley and Gentry. Because now I get better reciprocity when they know they're staying at a family property and that this is a family business. A lot of us, and I fell victim to this, think, I want to project myself being bigger. I want this big office, this big company. People are going to trust me more. People want more curated, local personal experiences, specifically after COVID today.
Yeah.
Right? It's a different world that we live in. So that whole guest transition is critical. And then there's a funnel that you need to have afterwards. And one of the tips that I'll give you is I text every one of my guests manually. It didn't used to be automated, Kyle, because I couldn't automate it. I do have it automated now and market my STR, but I send a message to them via text at 4:00. And I just say, hey, Kyle, I hope you made it home safely. My cleaners have checked the property. We didn't find any personal effects. And I stop that if we did and send a private one. But it's just that communication. And I let them know, hey, I'm going to be sending you a follow-up email tomorrow. Then that's email number 1 that goes out in the post-checkout funnel for all of my past guests. I've transitioned personally. And most importantly, I've set the table for Kyle. And most people are probably thinking, well, what would he be emailing about? I've already checked out. That is just a heartfelt welcome or a heartfelt thank you to Kyle the next day. Thank you so much for staying with us. It means the world to us. We really appreciate it. I don't ask for a review. I don't ask for any of that type of stuff. It's just thanking him, showing gratitude. And then I let him know, hey, by the way, I would love for you, because you were such a great guest. This is at the end. I think it's in a PS, actually. We'd love for you, because we're always looking for guests as awesome as you are, Kyle, to come and stay with us again at this property or another property. I'm going to give you a 10% discount. And by the way, here is a link to our website so you can see all the other properties. It's the only time that I ever send traffic from a marketing perspective to my website that has all of my properties on it. The only time that I will do that. So it's kind of that indoctrination, the solidification of a great relationship between guest and host. And then I'm introducing and giving them an incentive to make a decision quickly. So that is only available for 7 days, that 10% discount. So there's always a limitation of urgency and exclusivity with anything that I do that's tied to discounted pricing, and everything as a SDR host or a coach or anything I do in business.
Bill, I could talk to you all day about marketing. I love chatting about this, but Team Fearless and 6FF community here, I hope you're understanding, like, this is going beyond just how do we give guests a great experience? How do we get more properties? How do we build a business? This is legitimately, how do we use this skill or learn the skill of marketing to make everything that we're doing in all facets of our business amazing, right? And so going back to the original title of this, as we're kind of getting close to the end of the time here, I have 2 questions for you. First of all, can you just tell people what those businesses were that you built to $30 million or more? And then I'll ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, and I think the one that people may know, if you've ever gone to a shopping mall or on a cruise and you've seen glow-in-the-dark miniature golf, like I used to have one in Hanford, actually. I started it in Bakersfield, California. Started in Olathe, Kansas, but then I started in California. So glow-in-the-dark, like putt-putt golf in shopping malls and on cruise ships. That was our first 30. We did like $34 million for 30 to 35 million for almost 7-8 years pre-COVID. The other one is Top Golf. My partner and I have, and from Glow Golf, the glow in the dark putt putt business had the technology that was that's leveraged today. It's way different, way more advanced technology. But when they had their first, they were opening their first venue in London. God, I guess it was 2001 or 2002. We ended up getting involved and negotiated licensing deals and that type of stuff with them. But I'll go all the way back to Bell Aqua Bikini. And I never did $30 million in sales in 1 year, Kyle. But here's the one thing I learned, and the biggest thing that set me up for success for the rest of my life. One of my best friends was my CPA. And when I got an offer from Venus Swimwear, which is still around today, to get acquired, it was about $2.8 million cash, or it was a residual. And they were going to give me a 5-year residual at, I think it was 9%. And I was young and stupid. I'm like, dude, Jeff, let's take the cash, buddy. Go to Vegas, have a great weekend, fly over on a private jet, just like every other idiot that would be, in their mid-20s. And long story short, he convinced me to take a 7% royalty in perpetuity. Awesome. And I've made a lot of money, more than 30 million off of that, having to do nothing. And that's one thing that I love about creating passive income businesses. So many of you know, if you know who I am, you know that I've done 29 startups now. I still have 6 that are in business today that I am still generating passive income off of. So it's what I call creating an annuity as opposed to having an exit.
Have you watched the movie Air yet?
I just saw it a couple of weeks ago on a flight flying someplace. Yes, I loved it.
Yeah, when the mom says you're going to give us royalties.
Yep.
And most genius move ever.
It's ironic. Now you look at that move compared to what Messi's doing right now, with Miami and the MLS. I don't know if you know how Apple's involved in Adidas and all that stuff. He's got a bigger deal than what Jordan got. It's crazy.
That's crazy. Bill, a lot of these things, we're hearing you use the term brute force, right? You've done the things that most people aren't willing to do. Still, though, at some point, you had to probably be second guessing yourself and saying, am I doing the right things? Or there had to be some of that fear involved of like, am I going down the right path? What was fear at any point in any of these journeys with these businesses?
Always. I mean, yeah, I mean, the biggest fear I had, Kyle, was leaving Bakersfield, California.
Really?
21 years ago, my wife and I were driving out. I know Highway 98. I think it goes up through Tehachapi. We head that way to go to Vegas. Like if you ever go to Vegas, you drive through Bakersfield and head out through Tehachapi and go out to Mojave that way. We were crying as we were leaving. I was so dialed in that city. I mean, I was the high school phenom golfer. Was full ride to UCLA, played professional golf, the college golf coach there, and we just uprooted and moved to Nashville for the glow in the dark miniature golf business in the Opry Mills Mall here. And my wife and I were crying driving out of Baker. So we didn't know if we were making the right decision or not.
Wow.
We'd only been married for a couple of years, 2-3 years. We were young. We didn't have that much at that point. We weren't poor by any means. I mean, we had everything in the back of a 24-foot U-Haul, and to drive cross country and do that was pretty scary. But then the move we made, Kyle, I had a 90-day lease on a Glow Golf space. And then we got it renewed into what's called a short-term, long-term rent for 6 months. About 35, 40 days into that second 6-month lease, we bought a house here in Nashville. And Nelson Fertitta, who was building a $24 million aquarium restaurant, came in. And I remember getting a call from Gray, my manager, said, "Hey, I need you to come down to the office. Are you in the mall?" I said, "No, I'm at home, but I can be there in 30 minutes. He's like, "Yeah, get here as quickly as you can." I knew it wasn't good. Basically, Nelson Fertitta was building his restaurant here. We had our little shitty Glow Golf here. He said, "I'm stopping construction until you get rid of that Sanford and Sons game or whatever the hell it is." Because, I mean, ours was like a $50,000, it was like painter sheathing in the windows. It was just hokey. It was so white trash compared to, we just started this business and we lost our space. And I'm like, oh my God, we just bought a house. We just moved across the country. What are we going to do? I thought we were going to go bankrupt. And then the next biggest thing outside of that, everything worked out well, obviously. I won't go through the whole story. Built it into like a $34 million business. But then we got flooded in Nashville on May 2nd and 3rd of 2010. I lost all my businesses right in the heart, right as we were just starting to recover, from the downturn. And I thought I was going to have to I was considering bankruptcy at that time. And I was really, really close. And my partner, Reg Booth, in the Glow Golf business, literally, that's when he gave me equity. That's when he propped us up, put Bria and I on $10,000 a month, and it took us about 5 months, 6 months after we'd lost everything trying to save businesses. And there was no flood insurance, and that type of stuff for coverage. I was scared shitless. And I didn't know what was going to happen, and I vowed that it would never happen financially again. And that's when we started making major changes in our life. So if you look at 2010, it was 13 years ago. I'm 50. That's at 37. I'd been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years by that point, right? Most of us don't get it. Most of us don't understand P&Ls, balance sheets. We don't know cash flow statements, forecasting. We don't have that experience, especially if you've been in a W-2 and now you're trying to co-host your way or invest your way out of getting out of that W-2. That's where you need to really try to absorb that knowledge. It's not just about, like you mentioned earlier, hospitality, hosting, marketing. It's about how do you effectively run and scale businesses, right? And at 17, 18, 20, even 30, I didn't realize that. It takes a lot of experience and a lot of those, peaks and valleys and, falling on your face, to be able to learn. So I've had fear many times. Those are the two biggest ones that I can remember. The one thing I can tell you is I have not had any fear since 2015. And that's when a huge mentor, John Bairden, came into my life, and I built out a life plan that commingles business and life and set our goals, and everything has gone according to plan because I've re-architected my life with intention.
I love it. I love it, man. And one of the things that I think about when you talk about that, some people call it a money map, some people call it your money barometer, but really wherever you're at, right, is not an accident. If you're always living paycheck to paycheck, if you win the lottery, eventually you'll be back to living paycheck to paycheck. If you are right now filing bankruptcy, but you were making $1 million a year before, and that's where your barometer is really at, soon enough, you're going to be back to making $1 million a year. So a lot of that I hear, Bill, it just came down to desire and your mindset and not being okay with average.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the other big things was setting goals that, as John Bairden, one of my mentors, said, you can keep score with. They can be measured every single day,
Yeah.
and distill 10-year goals down into daily decisions and then audit. So my wife and I meet every Friday to audit the last 7 days. And if we're not available to do it on Fridays, we do it on Thursday ahead of time or Saturday or immediately when we get back. But for us, it's not just the money plan, it's the life plan, meaning it has to do with intimacy in our relationship. It has to do with our kids, the amount of, no cell phone time. Everything's commingled together. I think where people go wrong, at least in my opinion, or it was for me, is when they try to separate church and state, try to separate entrepreneurship and home life. It has to be cohesive.
Yeah.
There is no separation. It's almost impossible, especially if you're doing multiple ventures at one time. So we've learned how to leverage both, at least for how it works for me and my wife, and it's different for every couple that are involved or not involved together. But once you map that out and you have some concrete goals, then you can kind of reverse engineer, and that's where the architecting comes in of how you're going to achieve them.
I love it. Hey, Bill, how can we reverse engineer getting a Topgolf into Fresno? Because I think it would blow up here.
I don't know the answer to that. We are not involved in that anymore. You know what? I will bet there's probably one in the works. I mean, it's a good enough sized city. They won't go to Bakersfield or any place else. I don't even know where are they at in California. LA,
There's
San
one
Francisco?
in right outside of Sacramento. I can't remember the name of the city. But I think that, and then probably LA are the only other ones.
Fresno's a big golf city. Huge golf city.
I don't. If there was a Topgolf in Fresno, that person is going to make the biggest ROI for Topgolf and anywhere in the world, because there's nothing to do here, Bill. Everyone goes out of town on the weekends. People would now stay here and they would go to Topgolf.
Be careful what you wish for, because that's a good thing if they're going to Bass Lake and all the places.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Bill, brother, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. We're going to keep it now in the six-figure formula community to answer additional questions, especially about marketing and their short-term rental businesses. But thank you for helping our audience to conquer the world of short-term rentals. You are awesome. Really quick before we leave, though, how can people connect with you?
Bill Faeth 73 on Instagram, FAETH, buildstrwealth.com, billfaeth.com is going to be the easiest way. You can go through Kyle. I'm happy to answer any questions, and kind of pride myself on hopefully being one of the most accessible, coaches and people in our industry. I mean, Kyle, you can give him my cell phone number. It's 615-948-4569. If you have marketing questions, I'm happy to help. I want to see everybody, be successful in this business. And it's a little bit more challenging now than it was during COVID. I think if you got in after May of 2020, it's a different world. I kind of feel like it's 2017, 18 again, for myself, but the marketing's important. So happy to help you if you have any questions, just reach out.
Awesome. And guys, in case you're not seeing it, Faeth is FAETH, not ITH. All right, Bill. Thanks so much, brother. All right, we'll leave all of those links down below in the YouTube description, also on the show notes for the podcast. So you can go and check out Bill, get connected with him. He gave you his cell phone number. How awesome is that? How many times have you ever been able to just say, hey, I've got the cell phone number of a guy who's built 3 $30 million businesses? Not too many times, I'm guessing. So go and connect with Bill, take advantage of all the resources that he gave you. And as always, tune in every time when we have another episode of the Fearless Investor Podcast. So we'll see you next time here on the Fearless Investor Podcast, where we're helping you to conquer the world of short-term rentals.